Time passes without me noticing. I am at my all-time high mentally and physically. I just want to write. I just want to get it on paper. I just want to put it down. And one of my friends said, oh, you should get one of those voice to print things. And I said, you know what? I don't think I want that. It's the thrill of writing and hitting the keys and getting it all. I write very fast also on top of that. One of my writing tips is get it down on paper, right? Just get it down. You're not trying to create that great novel in the draft. Novels are never made in the draft. Great novels are never made in the draft. Just write, write, write. Don't worry about typos or, things that happen as you're writing along, because it is fluid and you can always change it. And that's how I write.
This is Unconditioning, Discovering the Voice Within, with Whitney Ann Jenkins. Hello and welcome to the 104th episode of Unconditioning, Discovering the Voice Within, where I bring on guests and we talk about the inner authentic voice and the challenges and the rewards that come from following it. This episode, I have with me K.A. Oliver. Kay is a dynamic storyteller holding degrees in radio, TV, and film from California State University, Fullerton, and an MBA in business. With over 3 decades in entertainment spanning studios and TV stations, she's produced, wrote, and directed films. Defying gender biases and the notion that female-centric stories lack marketability in Hollywood, Oliver took the leap in becoming an author, championing women's resilience in her novels. Characters, often professionals like archeologists and anthropologists, navigate life's challenges with humor, despite their imperfections. Passionate about storytelling, Kay's literary journey began with the success of Disturbed Tombs, evolving into a compelling series, Grave Disturbances, the second installment in the Dr. Kaili Worthy series, while anticipation builds for the upcoming release, Disturbing remains. Kay's work includes Road to Elysium, resonating with readers on a deeply human level. In her latest work, Ice Cream Moments, she explores family dynamics with empathy. Honored in Marquis' Who's Who in America 2024, Oliver's legacy as a legendary storyteller is cemented. I had a really lovely conversation with Kay, and she brought a lot of wisdom about her resilience through writing and believing in herself and following her intuition as to what has led her to become a very successful writer. So here is my conversation with Kay. Enjoy. Okay, so my podcast is about following your inner voice or the authenticity within you that drives you, the duende or the daimon or whatever that is that you would like to describe it. And because you are a writer, I feel like that is an expression of that part of yourself in a way. And you've been doing quite a lot of writing, it seems like.
Yes.
In order for you to be able to express yourself in that way and to access that voice of yours inside of yourself, you've had to probably go through a lot of things in order to get there. And,
I did. You are correct.
and so one of the first things that I like to ask is, when is the first time that you realized that you had this inner voice of your own that you were able to recognize and follow?
Well, when I first recognized that I had the talent and the passion for writing was in 6th grade, mind you. Um, I had entered a speech contest at the elementary school and won. But then later on, I went into the speech program at junior high and the won awards there. And then I started writing my own and doing, impromptu. And when I would get up to do some kind of class project, I always got these, wow, that was great, and because I wrote it. And so I knew at that point I really had a passion for creativity, which drove me into Hollywood. Um, that You know, a lot of things are coming out about Hollywood. It's not all that way, but there is a lot of that. And I had been diagnosed with breast cancer and lost my job the week that I told my bosses, and I lost my insurance and my job, and I'm single. So, yeah, I had friends that helped me. I, you know, could have gone after the company that let me go, but it was that or take care of myself. And I decided that, you know, I had to take care of myself first. And because of that experience, and yes, I've been, I guess, in remission or cured, whatever you want to call it, for 15 years,
Yeah.
I decided to take the leap out of Hollywood and go back to my writing. Um, I don't know. I mean, I wrote stuff, but never published things. I did screenplays and things like that, but that's not the same as writing a novel or writing a, you know, a fiction story. So I knew that I could do it on my own terms this time, right?
Yeah.
Look what I survived. And if I have it planned, it's got to be better. So I trusted in myself, believed in myself, and trusted in myself. Those are two different things. And I picked up writing during COVID. So, and yeah, when
Wow.
I stepped out, yeah,
Reclaiming yourself in a way.
yes.
Would you mind if we went back to your upbringing a little bit and your environment that you grew up in? And was there anything in particular that was happening in your life that you can remember when you started writing?
Yes, my parents got divorced
Mm.
back when I was in elementary school. It also, I believe, fueled my imagination because I spent a lot of time alone. Uh, we weren't called latchkey kids back then, which, you know, where you got the key to the house and mom wasn't home when you got home. But my brother and I pretty much raised ourselves. So I had a lot of time to, you know, dream and wonder and make things up and do things. So I think that helps a lot. You know, we didn't have phones. We didn't, you're right, that went with you. We didn't have games on phones. We didn't, you know, so I used my mind to escape.
Yeah. And you said that your parents were going through a divorce, is that right?
Correct.
Okay. And so you found writing to get you through probably a difficult moment in your life. And it seems like,
Very,
yeah.
it was a long moment.
Yeah. And so it seems like also uh you've experienced that again when you picked writing back up after going through cancer and through that experience of having to go through that by yourself without having someone or your family to support you.
Correct.
Okay.
Absolutely correct. Yes.
Yeah. So what was that leap of faith like to choose yourself and your writing?
Like, I mean, I won't lie, it was a little scary because you're like, okay, how am I going to make this happen? Right. I took some odd jobs here and there to, you know, help support with finance, but the action of writing, never questioned that. I was my happiest. I was fulfilled. I can write for hours if you know, if given the chance to do so. And my dog will remind me it's time to take him for a walk. You've been sitting too long. So my writing companion, but it flowed very easily, and I get a great joy out of it. And it's one of the best decisions I ever made, despite the fact that I have to, you know, rely on myself, which is true for most of my life anyway.
Hmm.
So, so, you know, I've always had to rely on myself. So I knew that I, you know, had to trust that I would be doing that again. I would do what it takes to get the books out, and I do.
Yeah. So was there a specific story that you felt like you needed to focus on when you decided to initially focus on the books?
Well, yes, there's two things. So I've always had the question. So my first book is an attempt at answering a question that I've always wondered. And that is, why do we exhume all the tombs we find in Egypt and Sudan? Yet our graveyards are sacred. Are we disturbing their peace?
Mm.
And so I took that topic and wrote it, put a little paranormal spin on it. But overall, what you'll find in my books that, um, I'm a fiction author, but everybody, the women are all professional women of, some caliber. They all have, if they have relationships with a spouse or, someone that they honor their career. They respect their women and like Jimmy Carter says, gives their women room to grow. And so all of my relationships in my books are that style of relationships. If an antagonist comes along, they're probably not that type of style. So, but as a protagonist, the women are all strong, stand up on their own 2 feet type of women, which I can relate to. And did they say, right, what you know? So, yes, yeah.
Yeah. So the first book that you completed, what was what were the steps after that?
After that, I wrote a couple of shorter fun books just to practice. I actually started my first book with a novella, which is a smaller book, right? And I wrote a couple of novellas to go through the publishing process. And then I combined them together for the larger book. That book has won 4 awards. First book out, 4 awards. I wrote a I wrote a I wrote a simpler book on the next one, because the first book had to go back and forth between the life of Seti and Selene, Cleopatra's daughter, and go back and forth, to different times, that kind of thing. And it was very complicated. I didn't realize it was complicated until I went to write my next book. I went, wow, this is really easy when you stay on track. So, right, it's just one year storyline pretty much. So, I wrote a couple just for, to get them out of my system and out of my head. And I enjoyed those. And then wrote my Road to Elysium, which is my only, at this point, well, maybe I have two, book that had a lead male, so a character. And that came from a news clipping. It's, inspired by true events. So that one's won 10 awards. So, yeah, so I think I'm on the right track. Yeah.
Yeah. Okay. So what is your writing process like as far as, do you have a ritual for yourself that you begin with? Do you show up at the same time every day, or do you just operate more of like whenever you feel like it?
Um, Pretty much when I have to get it out of my head. So I tell people you do not want to be inside this head. I have stories bouncing around. Uh, I give writers tips on my website for free to help upcoming writers. Um, and I normally tell them pick a time, pick a place. I did when I first started, got a new desk. I got it, put it by a window where I can look out, put some nice plants, made it a comfortable place to write, a place I wanted to write. That was important to me. But at this stage in the game, I write whenever I get chance to write. And I tend to not plot. What I know is I know the beginning of the story, where I want it to go, and I start writing. And I find that um, there's been times that my characters have done things I didn't know they'd be doing, to be honest with you. Like, wait, what? You know where I can go with this? And I try to turn on a dime. I don't like a lot of foreshadowing. I learned that when I was in Hollywood that, too much foreshadowing tells me where a story's going to go and it makes it unpleasant. I like to, like, in the middle of a sentence, you think something dramatic is going to happen, and all of a sudden, boom, it's something silly. I like to really show life. This is how life is, right? Your characters can trip when they're walking because that's what we do in life. So I really like to throw the life aspect into it. I have turned Disturbed Tombs into a series. I'm writing book number 4 right now. And then I have another series that is Cozy Mysteries that I've written 3 books on. So, it's fun to bring the character back that you've already developed. And then you can just dive all the meat into the story. So I like that.
Yeah, so it sounds like you're creating a container for spontaneity to happen.
Yes,
Yeah.
absolutely.
And since you are writing series and you used to work in Hollywood, have you thought about combining those two worlds and bringing your stories to life?
I have Road to Elysium. I have 2 producers looking at it right now. Yeah, so in a weird way, I could end up back in Hollywood, but the
On your
joy of writing, yeah, right. Yeah. So, yeah, I have. People have asked me about my books if I, would like to turn them into a movie, and I've said, sure. Which one are you interested in? So, yeah, it could happen.
Yeah, and the publishing process that you are using, are you self-publishing or do you work with a publisher?
Nope, I am an indie publisher. Mainly because I can't I don't have the time to look for an agent. I want to get the next story out. I want to, instead of having the book and then trying, for a year to get someone to publish it,
Mm.
I can publish it, in 2 days. I've been averaging about 2 books a year. I'm on book number 12, and
Wow.
yeah, so I started in 21. So
Well,
the,
you're really following that voice within you and believing in yourself. That's incredible.
yeah. Yeah, and every time I think, okay, this will be, I won't, I'm not going to have another story after this book. And let's see, I'm halfway through the next book I'm writing, and I'm already like, if we did this in the next story, yeah, right? So I just keep writing. I just love it. It keeps me occupied, out of trouble.
This is interesting. So I used to narrate audiobooks a lot as a voiceover artist, and I found that more often than not, something within the story would reflect in my real life. Do you find that happening with you and your stories?
All the time. So, here's a little secret. No, it's not going to be a secret now, but here's a little secret that I asked my best friends or people in my life, if you were a character in the book using your first name, what would your last name be? And they give me a last name, and then boom, they're a character in my book. So in Disturbed Tombs, the main character is Callie, and her best friend is named Doris, which happens to be my best friend. And there's another character named Adele, who's also a good friend. And what's great about that for me, and if any other writer wants to do it, is you've got a full character developed, right? You know your best friends, you know where they come from, you know their heritage, you know their customs, the things they like to eat when you go out to dinner, and it all just falls into place. You're not making a character out from scratch, you have their permission to use them, and it really helps. So
Uh,
I do that, and then also that's how come some things turn in my books. Because if I take a little break, if I go, okay, I get to the certain spot and I go, okay, well, I'm not sure where I'm going next, and something happens in life, and they say that, right? If you have a writer as a friend, everything you say
yeah,
you use against you in a book. So pretty much, yeah, it does. And there's a lot of me in my leading characters. Um, all of my leading characters in my book start with the letter K, like my name. So, yeah, so there's people I've read it and go, that's kind of like you. And I'm like, yeah. But at the same time, there's things that characters do that I'd never do. So, but I'm sure people think, okay, that's, oh, she does that, huh? So, um, yeah, so it's a blend of the character and myself. So,
that's really interesting. Like using people almost as archetypes for your characters.
yes, yes. because you should always really develop your characters, and yeah, they're already developed.
So when you're in the flow state of writing, can you describe what that feels like for you?
Yes, time passes without me noticing. I am at my all-time high mentally and physically. I just want to write. I just want to get it on paper. I just want to type, put it down. And one of my friends said, oh, you should get one of those voice to print things. And I said, you know what? I don't think I want that. It's the thrill of writing and hitting the keys and getting it all. I write very fast also on top of that. One of my writing tips is get it down on paper, right? Just get it down. You're not trying to create that great novel in the draft. Novels are never made in the draft. Great novels are never made in the draft. Just write, write, write. Don't worry about typos or, things that happen as you're writing along, because it is fluid and you can always change it. And that's how I write. I write fast and furious, and not to make a movie title out of it, but and I'm transported to my book. I'm in my book. I'm not in reality. I'm not in my living room or my study typing away. I'm in my book. And it just, like I said, if I didn't have a dog, I'd be sitting there all day and I'm realizing, oh my gosh, I gotta, eat. I'll forget to eat.
Yeah.
So yeah, that is how I write. Yeah.
It sounds like you're almost opening up a portal for yourself to go into a different dimension.
Yeah, and I imagine as bringing it back to the original conversation, that's what I did as a child to leave the place that I was at. My mom was not one of those mothers that made Mother's Day easy. She was very narcissistic.
Hmm.
And I think people forget that everybody doesn't have a great mother or maybe a great father. And everything about, those particular holidays are hard for a number of people. I couldn't find any cards that were true. Thank you for your support and your love and your tenderness. And no, that's not there. So I believe that that transporting to these characters in the story is almost like writing the life you wish you had.
Oh
You know,
yeah. Yeah.
adventure.
And it's a way of like transmuting that pain into more of a creative channel or a healthier way than maybe going towards substances or avoiding things in that manner.
Absolutely. Yes, I have had lots of therapy. Therapy. I mean, even when I was going through the cancer, my mom um was yelling at me that I wasn't answering the phone when she would call or whatever, because if you've gone through chemo, you know that when you finally fall asleep, the last thing you want is to, wake up to a phone, so you turn your phone off. Because you could fall asleep at 4 in the morning,
Yeah.
So yeah, she would call me and call me all sorts of names. And I played it for my therapist, and my therapist literally said, you have to get away from your mother. You have to really divorce yourself from, your own flesh and blood to get better. So that's pretty drastic. But there's other people that have it worse than phone calls. So I definitely escape in my books, and I just absolutely, I'm sure it's the same thing I used to do as a child.
Yeah. It sounds like you've found your own strength in that. And then yeah.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Very independent woman.
It's really inspiring. What do you feel about journaling? Were you ever a journaler as far as writing goes?
I tried it a little bit, and what I actually did, and I still have it, is I wrote poetry.
Mhm.
And I guess it was reflective of what I was going through, because if I go back and read it now, it's very dark. It's like I'm just a number among numbers, and that kind of thing, as opposed to being a person. And so I did a lot of writing poetry.
Yeah, I can relate to that. And actually, a lot of what you said, writing was a tool for me to kind of escape when I was a lot younger, and I was away from it for a while, but I'm coming back to it, and I'm finding similarities between your story and mine. So it's kind of like stepping into that confidence and the strength of choosing yourself and choosing your own path, right?
Right, absolutely. And if anybody else is out there who's like that, 'cause I tell people, write a small novella. It's 40,000 words or less. Like Stephen King and a lot of other writers start with novellas on a number of their stories and then flesh them out later. And it's just that's how I started. I took a little book. I know there was typos in it. My friends, you surround yourself with people who are positive, right? You said, keep going. That's a great story. And I'm like, but I'm thinking to myself that there's all these errors in it, even though I had hired editors and found the errors, after I published the book. But then, like on Amazon, you can update your manuscript. So, that's what got me started. I didn't take a giant leap to write, a giant fat novel, from day one. I wrote thin, small little novels just to get into the rhythm and to feel it out. And I just so much joy. Who's going to stop? So, I recommend that for everybody because, a lot of well-known writers write novellas just to, get it down on paper and out of their head, and then you can flesh it out later.
Yeah.
So I recommend that.
Can you talk maybe a little bit about working in Hollywood? Were you writing in Hollywood? Was that what you were doing?
I did some writing. Yeah, go ahead. Sorry.
And using this craft or art form that is so, it's almost sacred to you in the way that you described it growing up as a way to escape or access a part of yourself for comfort. What was it like for you to use that in a situation that you didn't have control necessarily over what you were writing?
Correct. Well, I had a first and last when I worked in Hollywood at one of the studios, which means you submit your script to them first. If they don't want it, you can go out and sell it. But if somebody wants to buy it, they get it to see it last. So I would write scripts, and silly me, I wrote strong, independent female lead characters. And I say that jokingly or sarcastically, because they would come back at that time and say, lead women characters don't sell.
Ah,
Right? Yeah, right. I know. I know. Well, they sell in books. I hate to tell you. And that's another thing that helped me go, no, that's not right. Hollywood's missing the boat. Because they don't market them the same way they market the strong male characters. We have just seen that with women's basketball where when the women started, getting undefeated seasons, and they just talk about them a little bit, and then they talked about them more, and now they're part of the sports broadcast. Um, they weren't talking about women's sports, right? And now they have to move to bigger arenas because they are now sharing the time in the sports segment with the male sports. It's true about a few other things in life that way. But, like the NFL for years missed that women are interested in football and before Taylor Swift and the Chiefs. And you couldn't find, because I've been an avid football person all my life and NFL, and you couldn't find ladies apparel in football. It was all male's jerseys, all male jackets. And now they're coming around to, um, including that in their apparel, which is like, what took you so long? You've lost a lot of money, leaving women off the bet. So yeah, absolutely. So in Hollywood, yes, they have creative control. So even if you write something and you give it to them, it can change almost to where you don't recognize it. That's a little difficult. And the other stuff you put up with in Hollywood when you're there as a woman. People say it's changed a lot. I'm going to beg to differ. It's changed a little. And that's because they're asking for equal pay. When you have a, Reese Witherspoon wanting the same money as her counterpart, which is fair, then she also will have the money to make a production company, and then she could also make her movies. So that's where you're seeing the strong female, a lot of them is coming from female producers who are investing in those movies. But the attitudes and things that some of the stuff I won't even tell you that I went through when I worked there. Yeah, take a deep breath. Whew, are just these things that people wouldn't believe. They would be like, "Oh, that didn't happen." And now things that I've told dear friends who keep confidences is coming to light, and they're like, "Oh my gosh, you said this, and it's true." And yeah, so it's a difficult place to work. It started as a very male-oriented company, um, back in the 1920s, 30s, and everything. And culture is the hardest thing to change in a company. So we're getting there, but it's been a long haul, and having total freedom of writing my books is a great experience, not being shackled.
Yeah, absolutely. And also just making a pathway for an alternative option, a different way that you don't have
Yeah.
to participate in playing the game. Yeah.
Yes, yes, that game is hard to play, and I'm not a good player. I don't see anybody in that world in Hollywood as a mini god. We're all human, we all, and there's people who like that, and there's people who don't like that attitude. So yeah, it is what it is.
Yeah. Yeah, I can relate a lot to this. I used to live in LA for a while, and I'm an actor, but acting to me is very much a craft, and it was really difficult for me to put my true self into those situations. And it's why I probably walked away from a lot of things, but choosing my own path, and it feels a lot better.
Yes. I agree with you on that. Congratulations. Good for doing that, because a lot of people fall in the trap. And it's so easy to do, I think you would agree, because, oh, I'll just do this one little thing. And when you do that one little thing that you weren't sure you wanted to do, then the next is, well, it's easier to step into the next and the next. And people end up in places they shouldn't be. And you have to have a strong self-worth and a strong thick
Yeah,
skin.
boundaries, yeah.
Yeah.
Mhm. It's really a test to your strength and knowing yourself, I think, to jump into that pool.
Yes, absolutely.
So with your writing, do you do consulting or coaching, or do you work with other writers, or how does
There's a, I don't, well, consulting. I do writer's tips that I offer for free on my website. I do blogs on, how to develop a character, how to write a story, how to, et cetera, et cetera. Um, there is a great community of writers on the internet. So I have tapped into that periodically. I have a good friend who has written a book prior to me writing, and she gave me great advice, and helped me along. So she kind of coached me. And then I've had people ask me to help them write a book, but I have so much going on in my head that I go, I can't really write something else. I need to get my stuff out. But I'll check in on you and see if you're writing and da da da. But as you know, the hardest stage is to sit down and start writing. That is really the toughest part of writing anything, is actually sitting down to write and not beat yourself up over, oh, that doesn't sound good. Don't worry about it. Just get it out. I thought, what am I writing? This is crazy. I'm writing about these dead people from 2000 years ago. And, but I also love the research. I got a great compliment from a man who lives in Sudan, and he asked me if I'd gone there
Oh
because
wow.
my so accurate.
I mean, you probably did in your own imagination in mind and energy.
Yeah, and in my register, I would research and you go on Google Maps and look up the city and see what it looks like, and yeah. So I transported myself mentally in a sense, yeah. But that was a compliment.
Yeah, absolutely. Congratulations. That's a really big compliment. Do you have a like an overall like vision or goal for yourself as far as where your writing will go in the future?
It has it has gone further than I thought it would. I'm in Who's Who in America now for my literary accomplishments. I was nominated and won Fiction Author of the Year by the International Association of Top Professionals. I'm like, I don't know, Pulitzer. But right now, I'm not writing anything that would, fall into the Pulitzer category because it's more like cozy mysteries, and I don't think they get Pulitzer prizes for that. So, but I haven't got a passion book in the sense of something that I absolutely need to get out and write. I think I was passionate about Road to Elysium that won all those awards. Um, I'm waiting for something else to strike because that was like I said, a news clip at the end of a news story, and I went, "Oh, someone's written about this." And I went in and looked and researched. No one had written about the story, and I thought, "You got to be kidding me!" So then, I must take this on. So it's kind of like A Wonderful Life meets Blindside. It does have a Christmas ending um, to it, and people just tell me that they put that book down and they think, would I have reacted that way in that situation? What would I have done? They said they keep thinking about the book after they stopped reading it, when they get to the end. So that's a compliment too. So I don't know. Maybe someday in the future I'll write something that's worthy of a Pulitzer or something of that type, but then that's political too, I'm sure. Like Oscars and Emmys, as you know,
Oh
are
yeah.
very well, they're not, the best picture doesn't always win. Um,
Yeah.
but I'm not good at politics. I have no time for politics just to get somewhere. So it just feels phony to me.
Well, there are people who are on the committee that vote for these things. So what are these people wanting, I guess?
Exactly, exactly. Or, who's paying more attention to them and giving them gifts or whatever. I'm not saying that I know the Pulitzer's that way, but I know, and you probably know that like the Oscars are a lot of lobbying and if you're not in Hollywood's graces, if you're considered an outsider for some reason and you're not following the Hollywood norms, you probably won't win. Yeah.
Oh, geez.
I hate to tell people this. I am also a professor of marketing.
Okay.
And one of the things I bring up literally in almost every one of my classes is the Hollywood stars on the Walk of Fame. You have to buy them. And that's the first reaction I get from all my students is, you what? I said, they're just not honorary handouts, and I go through the whole marketing process of those stars on the Walk of Fame, and they're in shock. They're just like, what? We had no idea, you know. So I try to tell them that that tells you how political Hollywood is.
Yeah. And how inauthentic.
Yes, good word, inauthentic.
If people would like to read your authentic books, where can we guide them?
They're on Amazon.com, or you can go to my website and find out more about my books and me, or you get the writing tips. And it's my name, K.A. Oliver, so KAYAOLIVER.com. And my books are listed there, a little more details. You can buy from my website as well, but most of my links will take you back to Amazon. So
Excellent. I will put those links into the show notes so people can click on them easily to get to you.
fantastic.
Yeah. Is there anything else like on the top of your mind or your heart that you feel like you would like to share that we haven't addressed yet?
Yes. I love, always tell people to do everything in your life with the intent of love. You can't go wrong. That, even when you breathe, you're filling your lungs and replenishing your body, and just take a moment and breathe with the intent of loving yourself. You can feel it. It's a different breath. So I believe in that. I know I've done things I help people out in Hollywood at times, and they come back with what's in it for you, and I go, nothing. I just want to, this is what I want to do for you. And they look at you like, oh, there's something else, right? No, there can be nothing else. I can do it just because it's my intent and my love. It's the right thing to do. And I enjoy that. So, yeah.
I have one last question that I ask to wrap up, and that is this will be good for your marketing professor background. If your inner voice had a billboard, what would it say to the world?
A smile is a crooked line that sets everything straight.
Ah,
Right?
that's very
Yeah.
good. Well, thank you so much for your time and all of your wisdom and sharing your story. I really enjoyed this.
I loved this interview. Thank you so much for allowing me to be on with you. I'm honored. Thank
Yeah.
you.
Thank you so much for joining me this week. If you're listening and you like what you hear, please consider subscribing and rating this podcast, as it really helps get this podcast out to other people who might be interested in hearing it but don't know about it yet. And also, if you'd like to contact me or reach me, you can reach me at unconditioningpodcast@gmail.com or unconditioningpodcast on Instagram. Thank you so much, and until next time, stay tuned in to you.